You're watching the video on the skeletal system. This video will focus on bones and their structure and what their purpose is in our body. So, what is the purpose of the skeletal system? What is the purpose of having a skeleton? What is the purpose of having bones? Why do we have a skull? Why do we have ribs, these arm bones here, the pelvis? What's their purpose? Well, their purpose is to hold you up. The purpose of the skeletal system is to hold your body up. And if you didn't have a skeleton, if you didn't have bones, then your body wouldn't be able to support itself. And you'd essentially just be a lump of meat, right? Your muscles, your heart tissues, your stomach tissues, all this stuff that sort of makes you up would just sort of be sitting on the ground in a pile rather than upright like we are as humans. Another function it has is that it allows your muscles to pull on your body and make it move. If you didn't have bones, your muscles have nothing to pull on. And this is an important thing, pull, not push. Pull on so that you can raise your arm, turn your head, move your legs, stand up and down, right? If you didn't have these bones, your muscles don't have that anchor by which to pull on. So yeah, that's really important. So the average adult, the average human adult has about 206 bones in the body, while the average child has 270, right? So an adult, when you're all grown up, you will have about 206 bones in your body. But as a child, as a very young child, you will have 270. Why is that? Why does a child have more bones than a full grown adult? Well, the reason why is that when you're a baby, when you're really young, giving birth is painful. Ask your mom. She's going to say that was awful. But the reason why it's so painful for human beings is because our heads are big. We have these really big heads and we have these sort of weird bodies that, in order for us to be born, it hurts the mother to be born, basically. And to make it easier, quote unquote, easier for the mother to do this, some of our bones aren't fully formed. They actually come in as separate pieces or plates. And so when you're born, as you're pushed through, the bones in your skull and certain bones will move around because they're plates. They're not fully connected. They're not fully formed. And so they move around and they're able to be pushed out and through and be born, and you're allowed to be born, right? If we had a fully formed skeleton with just the 206 bones, then we might get stuck. And that's a bad thing. And that could result in the death of the baby and could result in the death of the mother. And so having more bones that sort of will eventually fuse to become our skull allows us to be born a little bit easier. So it was evolutionary advantageous for human babies to have more bones than a full grown adult. And then as we age, well, then you want to have those pieces of bone connect so that you have these strong structures. And these strong structures come from the fusing of these different bone plates. So your bones are not solid all the way through. On the outside, you got this thing called compact bone, which is the hard bone, sort of gives it its strength on the outside. However, it's also got this weird sort of spindly structure on the inside. And this is called spongy bone. Now, the reason why you have compact bone, the solid bone, and spongy bone is because it allows our body to take shocks, right? It allows our body to take in shock. If our bones were just solid all the way through, if you jumped up and down and landed really hard, it could crack your bones very easily because that would make the bones basically very brittle or very easy to break or easy to shatter. Well, with this spongy bone in the middle, well, all that force when you jump up and down or land really hard is spread throughout that spongy, bony material. And so, with that force being spread, the shock of landing really hard is spread out, and so you don't feel it as rough and you don't break your bones as easy. So, your compact bone makes your bones hard. Your spongy bones allow you to absorb shock. And at the very, very center, you have your bone marrow. Bone marrow is also very, very important. So we talked about how your skeleton is supposed to hold you up. Your skeleton allows your body to absorb shock. Your skeleton allows you to stand upright and do all of those things. But in addition, in the center of your bone is your bone marrow. And your bone marrow is the center of red blood cell production, right? So we talked about this before. Cells working together make tissues, tissues working together make organs, organs working together to make organ systems. And some organ systems work with other organ systems, right? We have the organ system of the skeletal system. These bones, which are organs, are made of bone tissue, bone cells, bone tissue, and the bones themselves are organs. And the circulatory system, a different system we'll talk about, uses red blood cells. Well, those red blood cells come from the bone marrow. And so bone marrow basically churns out these red blood cells to allow us to transport oxygen and wastes throughout the body. So this video will talk about your bones and how they're structured. The next system I want to also combine with this is the muscular system. The reason why I've combined these two systems is basically because they work in tandem. This is another one of those systems that work very well with the skeletal system. And if you didn't have a skeleton, the muscles that we use to move our body, well, we wouldn't be able to move them because your skeleton is the anchor for your muscles. So what is the purpose of our muscles? Basically said it. The main job of the muscles in our body is to allow us to move, right? If you didn't have a skeleton, you wouldn't be able to move, and if you didn't have muscles, you definitely would not be able to move. So how does the skeleton and the musculature of your body work together? Well, the human body, there are three types of muscles. You have the skeletal muscles, which are the most common muscles you think of. When I say muscles, you probably think of your biceps, your triceps, your thigh, these sorts of muscles there. You probably are talking about skeletal muscle when you think of muscles, or when you talk about muscles, or when you think about them. That's because these are the muscles are the ones when we move. When we move, our skeletal muscles are the ones that are doing the moving, are the doing the pulling. There is another type of muscle. These are called smooth muscles. Smooth muscles move on their own. You really can't think about moving these muscles like you can with your arms. When you move your arms, you're controlling those skeletal muscles. But smooth muscles have their own thing going on. They do their own thing. You really can't control them with your mind. The same is true with cardiac muscles. Now, this one's a bit self-explanatory. Cardiac basically means heart. So cardiac muscles are heart muscles. And again, you can't control your heart, right? That would kind of be bad, because if you forgot to make your heart beat, you would die. So smooth muscles and cardiac muscles are muscles that you cannot control, while skeletal muscles are the ones you do control, and they're the ones that are most stereotypical in terms of what you think of as muscles. So how do muscles help us move? We have over 600 muscles. We have over 600 muscles, and they help us move by pulling on our body, and you really need to know this. Muscles help us move by pulling on our body. More specifically, muscles help us move by pulling on our skeletal system. They pull on our skeletal system, right? Again, with our bones in place, our muscles sit on top of them and anchor to them and pull on them. Muscles never, ever, 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 ever push. Never say the muscles are pushing, because they pull. When you raise your bicep, when you raise your arm, your bicep, this bicep muscle, is pulling on your radius and ulna, right? These two bones here. So they're pulling on your bones here, right? When you relax, or not relax your arm, but when you lower your arm or straighten your bicep no longer pulls, but the muscle called a tricep is pulling right here, and it's pulling it back, right? So these two muscles work in opposite, so that you can pull your arm in and stretch your arm out. But it's not the bicep pushing your arm out, it's your tricep pulling your arm back. Cardiac muscles. So Other jobs your muscles have is to control your heart. And again, cardiac muscles do that. Your heart is a big, big muscle, and its job is to pump blood all throughout your body. You have liters upon liters of blood, and this small but powerful organ pumps blood to your body, takes it in, and then sends it out again. Well, not through here, but yeah. And so this muscle has to be very strong. This muscle has to be able to maintain itself. And it's made entirely, almost entirely, out of cardiac muscle. Muscles also help you breathe. The diaphragm is a muscle that inflates your lungs. So you have your lungs here, right? But underneath you have this muscle way over here. And it's sort of shaped like a upside down U or an umbrella. And what happens is that when it pulls out this way, and it pulls out this way, and it flattens out. And when it flattens out, it creates a bunch of empty space. And if you remember from our lesson on mix and flow, that is a very low pressure area. And because it's very low pressure, the high pressure outside wants to go in and fills our lungs. And it fills our lungs. And that's how we breathe. It's not us inflating our lungs. It's not us actively going, my lungs will inflate. It's our body actually controlling this sort of weird umbrella looking muscle called a diaphragm. And the diaphragm flattens, lowers the pressure in your body. The high pressure outside sort of follows that low pressure, wants to go to where that low pressure is, goes down your throat or your trachea and into your lungs. And we'll talk about this in more detail. But essentially, the diaphragm is a muscle that helps inflate your lungs. This video talks about how to build muscle. Basically, when you work out, if you hit the gym and you start exercising real hard, what you're really doing is stretching those muscles and working those muscles to the point at which small little cracks occur. Small little cracks appear in your muscles. And when that happens, your body starts to go, okay, time to fix this. And they fix your muscles. And when they do that, they make them a bit stronger. And they add a bit more. And so when they do that, your muscles get a little bit bigger. They get a little bit stronger. They get a little bit tougher. And so that's basically what working out is. That's what going to the gym is. Sort of slowly and in small ways tearing your muscles so that they heal and get stronger. Now, you don't want to overdo it because too much working out can cause a large amount of tearing in your muscles, and that can damage your body. So muscles help us move our bodies, but all movements require energy. Where do we get our energy, right? When you move your body, when your heart beats, when your smooth muscles, for example, move things in your body, that takes energy. That requires energy. Well, we make our own energy, but we need something to get it from. We need a source of energy, right? We need a source of energy by which we can use to move our bodies. And that'll be the next lesson talking about the digestive system. So hopefully this was interesting, and I'll see you next lesson.